This video is going to be a film study look at Tre'Davious White, who the Ravens were able to acquire prior to the trade deadline, and his impact, his ability to match up with George Pickens at times in his first action in a Ravens uniform. Unfortunately, it comes during an 18-16 loss that drops the Ravens to 2 games behind the Steelers in the loss column in the AFC North with a lot of difficult games on the schedule remaining. As it relates to Tre'Davious White, a little bit better in off coverage probably than Brandon Stephens. One of the factors that leads to him being able to, quote, find the football, which has been talked about a little bit too much, kind of reveals what we sometimes don't know, in that when Brandon Stephens has got his back turned to the quarterback, it's tremendously difficult to find the football, especially like Charles Davis said on Sunday, when George Pickens is really good at showing late hands or not showing hands at all, such that you don't get a clue that the ball was on its way when your back is turned. Well, Tre'Davious White was playing a lot of off man, was playing where he could see the football thrown. He was beating George Pickens to the spot because he wasn't asked to cover in the same manner as Brandon Stephens. Does it mean that Stephens could have gone out there and accomplished that? No, that's not my point. Tre'Davious White did it. He covered very well against George Pickens, generally playing right outside corner. They did utilize Stephens as a dime linebacker. Really interesting usage there, if you ask me. We're kind of forced into that situation with Marcus Williams not playing hardly at all. I guess he played one snap when Kyle Hamilton got hurt. So with Hamilton and Tre'Davious Washington back there, Marlon Humphrey becomes the nickel or stays as the nickel defender. And then Brandon Stephens shifted to dime linebacker at times. Really cool alignment. I think gets us a lot of athleticism over there to the boundary, particularly in situations where Roquan Smith might be out for a while. Who knows what the status of the hamstring injury is. So I have to talk about this a little bit, this first rep. It's Tre'Davious White versus George Pickens. Thankfully, he's not targeted. George Pickens is really good at these slight push-offs. Now, Steelers fans might get triggered by it. Some of you Ravens fans might not like it. I really don't care. He has genetic gifts because of his long arms, such that he can do this in a manner that it doesn't get called. He doesn't have to extend, and Tre'Davious White's making contact as well. Both of them are. He doesn't have to extend his arms completely out because he has such long arms. Number one, he's very strong. He's a fast twitch athlete that's also long and lean. So he has a lot of traits that help him in these situations. There is clearly a push-off here by Pickens, but an attempt to grab by Tre'Davious White. So maybe they don't need to call it, and I'm fine with that too. But they shouldn't call the DPI either for Pickens when he is making contact first. That's my overall point. Running a fade concept, if you ask me, I'm a little perturbed that we're not playing any part of that with Tre'Davious, with the backside safety looking to help Marlon here. With the threat of Pickens on a fade, with his height, his jumping ability, his catching ability, that to me looks like an opportunity for them to possibly get him the football there if there weren't some type of pressure in Russell Wilson's face. Have to point this out if you didn't watch the Oweh video that I put out earlier on Monday. Clear and obvious hold on the first possession, not called. I thought that within the first 5 minutes of the game, you could tell that it wasn't going to be a balanced situation. We were going to play uphill, and this is just an example of it. There's others. If you don't like me pointing them out, if you think that it's excuses, just stop watching. Really nice job of just continuing to play by Oweh here, and then a violent finish. 2.5 sacks. Really could have had a third one, but a whistle was blown prior to the snap when George Pickens was unable to get his second foot out of bounds, and the pass was ruled incomplete, I believe, in the third quarter. Steelers did this a lot. This is actually against our dime look. So line up and empty with Pickens to one side, running back to the other, and then switch them. Essentially, trips B. Trips to their left, running back opposite or away from the trips. Trips B gun. Tre'Davious comes up, and you saw him check with Roquan and Brandon Stephens, basically get them in the right coverage. It didn't bother us because we weren't playing man anyway. As it relates to Tre'Davious White, he's up here to the top side. I believe that's Williams, the number one receiver. Kind of looks like just a go switch with him and Pickens. And we're in zone, so Tre'Davious White off coverage. I love the fact that Marlon collisions receivers. I'll run it back again. You can see him collision number one, but number one is kind of going to the top of the numbers, and then number two was Pickens. A little bit of a wheel action. Almost looks like maybe it could have been a sail fade, if you will, to utilize his height and athleticism. Oweh and Brandon Stephens get the split sack on this one. So once we let it run, these are just small things that Marlon does. He's making interceptions, huge interceptions, timely ones, crucial for us, forcing fumbles like the one against the Bengals. But these little things he does is something that no one else does on our defense. Slight disruption or impediment of a receiver in a manner that looks almost, quote, accidental, but it's not. Just getting in the way of the receiver enough to disrupt his route a little bit. Receivers don't like this, number one. Number two, we don't do it that often, other than Marlon Humphrey, that is. So I think there's just a lot of small little things that he's doing really well to help safeties out when receivers otherwise are getting on top of them because of the free releases, which we do allow a ton of. This is second quarter. It's going to be a 3rd and 4. It's going to be manned up against Austin down here to the bottom side. It's 7-6 Ravens now at this point. We're late in the second quarter. Again, Steelers are switching Pickens and the running back, and so we're playing man and kind of giving away our coverage there, but it didn't matter. Marlon Humphrey's in good leverage and position against Pickens most of the time. I thought Roquan on 2 of his pass drops did a great job of getting in the window for where Russell Wilson wanted to go. First of all, this is not actually one of them. He does get lost a little bit here, I think, after Austin changes directions. Wilson had already decided to scramble, so thankfully or fortunately for us, he wasn't able to find Austin on this backside. I do wonder if Tre'Davious White, where he is in terms of his athleticism, he looks like he's got pretty good technique, but in terms of his athleticism, he might be better suited for some of the bigger, stronger wide receivers and not a great matchup against smaller, quicker guys like a Calvin Austin. I don't know that to be a fact. I'm just wondering or speculating based on the limited amount of film that we've seen so far. Again, you've got Pickens running directly into Marlon Humphrey's grill. Humphrey's not going to back down an inch at all. And so I will continue to make this point as it relates to Pickens. He is initiating physical contact at times and then getting pass interference calls, not on that play, later on, where the DB, if you ask me, is just matching the physicality that was already established at the beginning of the play. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Late second quarter, real late second quarter. In fact, this is a 3rd and 10 matched up against Pickens down here. He just runs the route for him. And what I mean by that is he's not running it from a press man location, but he's getting in the path of where George Pickens wants to go. Almost think like a charge in basketball. The ball's already out. Russell Wilson knew where he was going with it. This is just them taking a shot. Hey, let's take a shot on 3rd and 10, see what we can get accomplished. Man, Tre'Davious White was all over him. Is it a limited route tree? Man, I don't get into all that. I mean, George Pickens is a dangerous and talented guy. What I do know is Tre'Davious White seemed to have done his preparation. This is absolute solo here. There isn't going to be any help from the safety. Marlon Humphrey ends up on outside leverage. I think he's trying to funnel that slot receiver, Austin, into Kyle Hamilton. And Russell Wilson knew where he was going with the football. Lofted it up there. Great timing. Great extension by Tre'Davious White. He doesn't have the same height. I mean, it's ridiculous that this dude is asking for a pass interference on that. I really don't have much good to say about him, to be real. Mentality-wise. Physicality-wise, gifts and all that, he's got the whole package. Same play, end zone angle. You can see how quickly Russell Wilson gets rid of it. Great challenge, just perfectly played by Tre'Davious White. We hadn't had that a whole lot with Brandon Stevens over there against the bigger, stronger, athletic guys. I mean, do you think that he's going to replace Stevens as a full-time starter? I'm not so sure. Based on the reps that I'm seeing, it looked like better reps by White down in the red zone. Again, it's a small sample size, so that may not hold true. Perhaps he'll play well in between the 30s. That's been a little bit of an element of our defense really dating back to the preseason. I recall mentioning after 2 of our preseason games and even after the Chiefs loss in week 1 that we played better defense down in the red zone. We were tighter to receivers. We were able to challenge more, almost like we were more comfortable getting closer or nearer to receivers to challenge than we were in between the 30s, perhaps worried about giving up big plays down the field. Moving to the second half here, actually skipped probably 6 or 8 plays where he was on the field that are run concepts. This one is a run play to his side. He doesn't get involved. Right side corner. We've got Simpson and Malik Harrison in the game. I think Harrison is a little wide, but the formation kind of calls for it. If we want to stay in a too high safety look, we really don't have a choice but to kind of move this inside linebacker Harrison out so wide, such that when Najee Harris does go away from Malik Harrison, he's really not going to be able to get involved. He's distended or almost apexed out, and you can see the outside linebacker. Tavius Robinson is also out there. We've kind of got a numbers issue, but if you do the numbers for what they have on the backside, 4, we really do pretty much have the same thing here. 4, the only difference is Malik Harrison is not able to climb over the top of that block. Najee Harris ends up getting 5 yards. Unrelated to Tre'Davious White, obviously. 3rd and 5 here. He's going to be manned on Pickens in the slot. And I think Hamilton just reacts to Russell Wilson's face mask just enough that when Wilson comes back to the slant, almost literally a slant stop, Pickens stopped his route because I think he suspected or knew that Kyle Hamilton was there. Tre'Davious White is a little disconnected from this one, if you ask me. This is one of the reasons why I feel comfortable saying I wonder about his coverage between the 30s compared to what we might see in the red zone. Let's run this back a couple of times. Try to keep an eye on Wilson and Hamilton. It's empty, so Hamilton's kind of responding to trips over there. But my thing is we've got Brandon Stevens down here. Like at some point, there's got to be someone that we put Stevens on. I mean, having Marcus Williams be A, ineffective at times, and B, just not be on the field is really hurting us because we could have Hamilton over here and someone else at safety to react to the quarterback and or just help out with Pickens. I thought that would be the idea here with Tre'Davious White on Pickens and Marlon on Austin, Brandon Stevens on the tight end. To me, I feel like Hamilton should be a little slower to get manipulated or moved in the middle of the field and just pretty much stick to Pickens over there. But I'm being quite picky there. I mean, it's a nice throw by Russell Wilson. Nice hands, first of all, by Pickens to be able to catch it for 7 yards on a 3rd and 5. Again, the Steelers up 15-10 there. Pretty big moment, if you ask me, that they're able to convert it. Later on that same drive, complete to the tight end over the middle. Inconsequential as it relates to Tre'Davious White on this play. But these are routes that I thought Brandon Stevens had difficulty defending this year and somewhat to an extent in 2023. These in-breaking routes, whether Tre'Davious White's going to be there or not, I don't know. But let's talk about Malik Harrison for a moment. You are getting a pulling guard. The right guard, 66, is going to pull. And so that gets a reaction from Malik Harrison. Also, Trenton Simpson doesn't really do much to get a piece of Darnell Washington, who swims over top. It's a quick throw over the top of the linebacker level by Russell Wilson. Washington we let get free too many times yesterday. This one goes for 25 yards. He should have to earn his money a little bit more. This is too easy, in my opinion. Pretty big moment with about 12 minutes left in the game. Steelers are up 15-10 at the time. Same possession here. This is a 2nd and 5. It's going to be an incomplete pass to the left-hand side. Tre'Davious White is up at the top. We're just releasing people underneath. So Pickens is crossing. Tre'Davious White is releasing. I think that's Freiermuth. So you have almost like a deeper mesh or deep cross concept. Nice communication by Ardarius, and then real physicality by Kyle Hamilton to just walk Pickens out of bounds, making him ineligible. Huge hit by Kyle Van Noy. I'm glad Van Noy was able to get his hands up and not spike or drive Russell Wilson into the ground and pick up a penalty. But you can see how these guys played it. Outside in leverage, basically passing off the receivers to the other side. It's a 2nd and 5. So credit to how we defended it. We seemed to have some type of inclination as to what the route was. I'm not sure how we knew. Pretty well covered by everybody there, if you ask me. Van Noy's hit from the end zone angle. You get a pretty good view of it. Roquan's out here. It's 15-10 Steelers. Like I said, we're down to about 9.5 left in the fourth quarter at this point. Russell Wilson couldn't really get anything done there. Everything was well covered up. A little bit later, this is after, I believe this is after Marlon's interception. Third and 10, man on Pickens on a vertical concept. Just great connection to the receiver. He essentially got in his lane. He got in Pickens' path. He didn't basically just run vertical. He kind of squeezed toward the sideline, got hands on him just enough such that it wasn't called. Pickens still makes a heck of an effort here to get over the top. They both have the ball in between their chests or their stomachs, whatever. I don't know about you, but in this moment, I was like worried that he was somehow still going to catch the ball. I mean, he's got that kind of ability. He's a natural athlete at going to get the ball. Great wingspan. But this is a great challenge by Tre'Davious White. I don't know that Brandon Stephens plays it like this. All we can go on is the film that we've got. Again, another situation where Brandon Stephens is playing to the boundary against the tight end. That'll be interesting to see what teams do, if that's how we're going to play it. If Marcus Williams is just going to disappear like Eddie Jackson did, we're operating at a little bit of a depth deficit. So using Brandon Stephens over there, I'm not saying it's risky, but it does put a lot of our cover guys on the field. You can see at the same time, White, Marlon, Hamilton, Ardarius, Stephens, and Wiggins all on the field at the same time. I'm here for it in terms of a dime package, 6 DBs on the field on a 3rd and 10. It's beautiful stuff, if you ask me, by Tre'Davious White. He deserves all the credit that he's getting. And Ravens fans are not wrong for wondering, whether he will continue to play, whether he deserves it or not, over Brandon Stephens. Brandon Stephens has given up big plays on stuff like this for definitely in 2024 and parts of 2023. I think it was a great moment to see someone stand up to him. Of course, after the play, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but Pickens is asking for a penalty just because someone actually physically challenged him and was able to stand up to him for a moment. It's annoying as to no end to sit and watch that type of behavior. Spoiled, arrogant, expecting to get every call. And that's part of the reason why I think Sunday was so frustrating for some of us Ravens fans, because we saw them expecting, George Pickens particularly, expecting to get every call, and we were just happy to get a couple of them. On the drives where our offense actually was able to get some defensive holding calls or pass interference, we were able to go down and score quickly. Their offense was kind of propped up at times by our penalties, and some of which was our own doing, obviously. Kyle Van Noy stepping off sides, apparently not able to get out of the neutral zone, whatever the rule is now, or the interpretation and enforcement of it. Tre'Davious White stood up to Pickens and did so without committing penalties or without doing anything egregious that the refs had to throw a flag on. I felt like it was equal contact between the two of them, and it's a nice matchup. If they face off again in Baltimore later in the year, is it entirely possible that Pickett catches a couple of those? Sure, he's just got that kind of ability. And Russell Wilson is willing to throw it up, number one. Number two, he's not as willing to go through progressions of reads, based on what I saw from Sunday, and work the ball to his second or third guy between the tops of the numbers to the tops of the numbers. He seems to kind of have things made simple for him so far. I'll put it that way. In any case, you guys let me know what you think of the video, the plays that I chose to illustrate how well I thought Tre'Davious White played. I wanted to get this one out Monday and move Monday night and move to defensive concepts and what Zach Orr and the guys on the defensive staff, defensive side of the ball, were trying to get accomplished, stopping or slowing down the run at times and being very sound against the pass, whether it was zone or man. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. And if you think other Ravens fans would appreciate or perhaps enjoy this video as well as with my commentary and the plays associated with it, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so other Ravens fans can enjoy it as well.